Okay, so I want to shift grounds a little. So far we've done a lot of chunking down, and Evan's done a magnificent job of that, filling in all the details at the greater and greater levels of details. But I want to chunk up now, the other direction. I want to look at the bigger picture. I want to look at where we need to be going, where the world needs to be going, and why entrepreneurs are so important. So, the first thing is, once again, we can identify entrepreneurial talent, we can train entrepreneurs, we can coach entrepreneurs. One of the keys to being a successful entrepreneur is what we call spotting a superior opportunity. Spotting a superior opportunity. We have algorithms that we could use in order to generate superior opportunities. Now, there are a lot of people given the opportunity that could create and grow a powerful business, but they can't spot the opportunity. They're not difference people. They're not innovative. They don't have that innovative thinking. So one of the things that we could do is come up with Entrepreneurial Inc., where we come up with and generate a whole group of superior opportunities. Then we put together teams of people like Eben has identified and put together, and we put the structures and processes in place, and then we can put these people out there and let them go then grow the business and create the business. Now then, why is entrepreneurship so important? It has to do with what's called high-growth startups. High-growth startups are businesses that start up and continue to grow. They hire more and more people. They add more and more money to the economy. There's a direct correlation between gross national product and the number of high-growth startups in a country. And every community in every country wants high-growth startups. Now, what do we have in reality instead? Tragically, what we have is that most businesses, over 95% of all businesses that start up, cease trading within 3 years. Instead of having high-growth startups, we've got what I call rapid decline start-downs. They're on a glide path to oblivion, and it's only a matter of time. They're in the death spiral. They don't necessarily know it, and it's only a matter of time. And once again, then when businesses go belly up, it creates problems for the people involved. It creates problems for the economy. Every nation, every community wants high-growth startups, but they don't know how to identify the people. They don't know how to create them. We have the technology that can allow us to begin to do those things. And if we can do the things, it will make a difference in the lives of the community. It will make a difference in the lives of people that are employed in it. It's a case of getting the pieces of the puzzle and fitting them together. Now, the next thing is the corporate mess. In the corporate world, they don't talk about entrepreneurship. They talk about creativity and innovation. And tragically, there's a couple of things that are really starting statistics. One, 90% of all radical innovations in the 20th century came from businesses that hired less than 20 people. It's almost impossible for a large business to be innovative for a number of reasons. One, they come out of a power control culture, which Eben has said don't do, instead of an achievement culture. And Eben has given the perfect example of how to create and manage an achievement culture. So large businesses. Also, 90% of large corporate world, when you ask, is creativity and innovation important or very important, and they say yes. And then if you ask them how successful are they at, 90% say no. So we not only need to have creativity and innovation, we need to have entrepreneurship, but we need to have entrepreneurial thinking in the corporate world. The corporate world is even a bigger problem. It's on a glide path to oblivion. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies 10 or 20 years ago and look at them today, you'll find there's a tremendous turnover, tremendous churning. So being big doesn't help you. In fact, frequently it's one of the biggest hindrances you can have. So we've got a mess out there. So why are entrepreneurs important? Entrepreneurs are important because they are the future of the economy. They are the people that can create high-growth startups. They are the people that can be innovative. They are the people that can move things forward. Okay, the next thing, I want to talk a little bit about a challenge for you here at the end. So when you get involved in any kind of activity, you go through 3 stages. So first, we'll call it the work. The work is what you do. Entrepreneurship happens to be the work that you're engaged in. Now, in the first stage, what you're doing is you're doing it because what it can give you. So you've got an extrinsic motivation. Oh, I can get money out of this, I can get this. But as you get involved in it, the work takes on a life of its own. It becomes intrinsically motivated. You would be doing it whether you were making money out of it or not. You want to be making money, but that's not what's important. What's important is doing it, the challenge, the opportunity, the overcoming, the working. It becomes part of your life. And then you reach a certain stage then where at the end you need to be able to serve the work. In order to serve the work, you've got to give back. It's said in the work that you can't move on till you leave someone in your place. So what Evans said earlier, that find one person who's a star, who's less fortunate than you and less advantaged, and mentor them. That's what the entrepreneur, that's the final stage, is giving back and moving on. But there's something beyond that. There's something beyond that. The world is a mess. We all know it. All we got to do is we got to look at the newspapers, we turn on the television, we've got war, we've got poverty, we've got disease, we've got conflict. And most of us just figure, hey, I got enough problems in my own life. There's nothing we can do about it. But there is something we can do about it. So first, there's two kinds of change, what we call first order change and second order change. First order change is if you've got a pendulum. It'll swing one way and it'll swing the other way. The politicians, the liberals and the conservatives, the pendulum swings back and forth, and problems never get solved. The argument goes on forever because they're both part right and part wrong. All perspectives are partial. They've got partial perspectives. And so they can argue and give good arguments for their side, and they're blind. What Eben then talked about, once again, the critically important thing of emotional estimation and seeing only validation. They only see what they need to see. There's a second kind of change. It's called second order change. It doesn't make sense in terms of the system. It comes from outside the system. It involves a total change of perspective. It involves it looking at things in a different way. And entrepreneurs are people that can create and identify second order change. So what is possible and what do we need to do? First, we need to reform the educational system. Eventually, business is going to have to take control of education. What should the job of education be? Should be to prepare people for jobs, productive, creative jobs in the business world to support the economy. Does the education do that? Most of you that are business owners, when people come into your employment, one of the things you got to find is you've got to retrain them almost from scratch. So they wasted years in the educational process, and where did it get them? It didn't prepare them to earn a job. It didn't give them the right attitude. It didn't give them the right skills. Even more tragic, Daniel Goleman in his book on emotional intelligence exhaustively demonstrates that one of the single most important factors in success in virtually every area of life, and particularly in leadership at the top, is emotional intelligence. And there is no school in the world where people are trained in emotional intelligence, the thing that's going to be the single most important factor in success, and there's no training in it. So business needs to take control of the educational system. Now we can do even better than that. We've gone out and we've modeled stars in all sorts of fields. We've modeled how people learn quickly, rapidly, effectively, how they can change. And one of the people we modeled that Evan mentioned, Michelle Thomas, who could teach people to speak a language fluently, could teach people to speak a language proficiently in 3 days. What would happen if you had an educational system? If in the first 5 years of school, you learned to speak 5 different languages, to read and write and converse in those, so we could begin to break down the greatest barrier to communication, which is different languages with people throughout the world. And then we were able to accelerate what you learned. We were able to take the strategies of genius. We were able to take the stars. We were able to distill what they had and go in and train people to do that. We could create a race of geniuses, a creative people, people that are capable of second order thinking, people that are capable of really dealing with the problems we deal with. Now, my wife has created a foundation she calls the Children of Light and Wisdom. And our goal of this is to try to create global leaders, people that are capable of second-order change, people that are stars, that are ready to move forward and ready to do things. Okay. Now then, Steve Jobs, when he was trying to persuade John Sculley to come to work at Apple, went back and forth with John a number of times, and finally he asked him one question that changed his mind and caused John Sculley to leave one of the most profitable jobs in the world, president of Pepsi-Cola, to come and work with Steve Jobs. And what Jobs said is, John, what do you want to spend the rest of your life doing? Selling carbonated sugar water, or do you want to change the world? Now then, what do you want to spend the rest of your life doing? If you want to spend the rest of your life selling carbonated sugar water, that is fine, because people need it, and we can train you how to do it better and more efficiently and sell more of it than anybody else. But if you want to play the great game, if you want to play a bigger game, if you want to change the world, then we have the technology, we have the possibility, and only entrepreneurs are in a position to be able to do something. So what we need then, those of you that want to play the great game, that are ready to give back, that want to move on, that are interested in not just changing the business world, but are interested in changing the economy and changing the world, then let me know, let Marilyn know, let Evan know. There's several entry characteristics. One, you got to be a star. So you have to demonstrate that you've been able to get there. Second, you got to have time, energy, commitment, and resources to contribute to this process. It's interesting. One of my favorite science fiction writers was von Voigt, and he wrote two beautiful little books called The Players of Null A and The Pawns of Null A that were based on general semantics, which is a philosophy developed by Arthur Korzybski. And so in these books, he starts every chapter with a little paragraph that is kind of a phrase out of general semantics. And in one of the books, one of the last chapters begins with the following statement, and I'm paraphrasing it a little. And it says that the world is waiting for bold and imaginative young men and women to create a non-Aristotelian-oriented politico-economic society that can eliminate war, poverty, and disease. It can be categorically stated that no such society now exists. In order to do this, it will be necessary to take control of the world away from people who identify. And who are people who identify? They're the politicians. They're the people that fall into the two traps that Evan has told us about from the beginning, that get caught up in their own emotional estimation, that only see things from their own perspective, that see only validation, that wisdom comes from multiple perspectives, and they only see their path. And they don't see the greater path. They don't see the greater whole. They don't see the possibilities. So we need to take control of the world away from people who identify. We need to refocus things. And who are the only people that can do it? The only people that can do it are entrepreneurs, because they're the only one that have the talent. They're the only one that's got the persistence. They're the only one that's got the energy, and they're only ones that can carry through. So my last challenge to you is, do you want to spend the rest of your life selling carbonated sugar water? That's great. Then Eben has taught you, and we can teach you how to do it masterfully and be better at it than anybody else. But if you want to play the great game, if you want to change the world, then you've got the talent, you've got the ability, and if you don't do it, nobody can do it. And we've got the technology, we've got the possibilities, and what we need to synergize our energy together and make it happen. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Last, I want to thank Eben. I can't thank him enough. I've known him over the years. And over 10 years now, I've seen him grow, I've seen him evolve, and I'm just amazed being here, seeing what he's done, seeing the incredible sophistication of what he's put back together, and now the fact that he's willing to give it away. He's truly reached the step where he's ready to give back, where he's ready to leave other people in his place and move on. And most people are not ready to do that. And so you don't understand how fortunate you are, because there's a lot of models out there, and there are none that are the level of sophistication of what he's created. So we're all lucky to be here, and let's give the real star who put all this together the hand he deserves.
Whoa.